Dedicated Leilu Nishmas Maras Racholea B'Reb Chaim Tzvi. We're beginning the section in Perek Lamed Zayin of the story which is referred to as Mechiras Yosef, the story of how the brothers sell their brother Yosef HaTzadik, who ultimately becomes the viceroy in Egypt. Before we even begin this section, we need to understand a couple of ha'aras. The first is that we are dealing with the Shiftei Ka. We're dealing with Kedoshei Elyon, people of tremendous stature. And obviously we can't look at this story and judge this story from the vantage point of the way we look at regular human beings. And that has to be our mindset in approaching this section, that we're dealing with tremendous individuals. I mean, the Avos, the children of the Avos, we don't even have an understanding of how tremendous they are. And therefore, our focus and our view, as much as we're going to try to analyze and understand, has to be with that perspective of Yiras Shamayim and that perspective about whom we are dealing. And that's the hara of the Nesiva Shalom, that this section is a section which is beyond our human understanding to be able to fathom and to really be able to fully understand what is going on here. This is beyond us. Having said that, we will work in Mirza Hashem with the Mefarshim to do the best we can with our limited mindset, with the understanding that we are limited and our mindset is limited. That's ha'ara number one. The second ha'ara is obviously a section like this, which has so much depth and so much musar and so much understanding on so many different levels. A person can spend literally years on Perek Lamed Zayin and really understand it, as best as one can, as we've just discussed, in a very deep way. We don't have the time, the capability in this type of forum to do such an extensive study. So the second ha'ara is, this is going to be what we would call a brief 10, 12 session overview of highlighting certain mefarshim on every passuk. But clearly, and I say this at the outset, this is not an all-inclusive understanding and depth of this inyan. It obviously has to be learned much more. This is just to literally whet our appetite to get a sense of some of the highlighted ideas in this section, and then each and every one of us can spend time being ma'ayin further within the Mefarshim. Having said that, now let us begin this what we'd call survey class of this very important perek. Perek Lamed Zayin begins, Vayeishev Yaakov be'eretz Megarei Aviv be'eretz Canaan. Now obviously before one learns any perek, one has to understand, where is this perek coming from? What is the background of this perek? So if we take a look at the previous perek, which is the end of Parshat Vayeishev, we find, let's take a look together, my friends, at the end of Perek Lamed Hey. The passuk says in passuk Kav Zayin, Vayavo Yaakov el Yitzchak Aviv Mamre Kiryat Arba hi Chevron, Asher Gar Sham Avraham v'Yitzchak. So Yaakov Avinu finally reaches, after 22 years, the home of his father in Chevron, Kiryat Arba, wherein both Avram and Yitzchak dwelled. And then we find that Vayu Yemei Yitzchak Ma'at Shana U'Shmonim Shana, Vayigva Yitzchak Vayamot Vayasof Elamav Zakein U'Sva Yamim Vayikbru Oto Esav Yaakov Banav. And then Yitzchak Avinu dies. And then Perek Lamed Vav deals with Ve'elo Todos Esav Hu Edom. These are the descendants of Esav, who is Edom, and we have here what we call the Alufim, all of the leaders, all of the generals of Esav, and that is a tremendously long perek, 43 psukim. If we take a look as a sample, the last pasuk in Parshat Vayeishev, Aluf Magdiel, Aluf Iram, Ela Alufei Edom, Limoshvotam, Be'eretz Achuzatam, Hu Esav Avi Edom. So we hear about, in one perek, the lineage and all of the families that are pertinent to us of Esav. Then comes along our pasuk, Vayeishev Yaakov be'eretz Megarei Aviv Beretz Canaan. So clearly there is some type of interrelationship, some type of comparison that the Torah Kedosha is drawing by bringing our passuk after the passuk dealing with the Alufei Esav. So if we take a look at Rashi, in the Smichus Inyanim, Rashi says the following: Vayeishev Yaakov, achar shekatav lecha yeshuvei Esav v'toldotav b'derech Sarah. Esav is mentioned just very briefly, Shelo hayu sfunim v'chashuvim lefaresh hayachni shashvu, because they are not as important to know how they developed and how they settled. V'seder milchomotayim echor rishu etachori piresh lecha yeshuvei Yaakov v'toldotav b'derech aruka kol gilulei sibata. While Esav is mentioned very briefly, and we don't have all the historical background on how they were able to conquer the lands they conquered, Yaakov, we are given a tremendous amount of attention. Why? Because they are important